Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is
DJ Angelo.
You're rocking with the best, the best, the best.
I'm the hottest round with the crazy style.
Hey people, it's DJ Angelo again. Welcome to Turntable tutorial number 5. So far we've been laying the foundations in turntablism and we've been focusing on developing our record hand control. I'm now going to step things up and introduce the mixer into our scratching. So this tutorial is all about developing the coordination between your record hand and your mixer hand. By incorporating the mixer, this opens up a whole new chapter in scratching. So whatever scratch technique you do with your record hand, your mixer hand is ultimately in control of the sounds you create. The channel faders are mainly used for mixing and blending tracks together, but in turntablism, a great way to start building coordination between your two hands is to scratch with your record hand and at the same time fade up and down with your mixer hand. Hopefully, with a bit of practice, your two hands will be able to work independently of each other, which is an essential skill to have in turntablism. Here's a few examples. In my opinion, cutting is the most important scratch technique that incorporates the mixer. It's a process of switching a sound that we want to hear on and switching a sound that we don't want to hear off. It can either be done with the channel fader or the crossfader. Most beginners find cutting easier with the channel fader, so I'm going to show you this first. At the beginning of this scratch technique, your record needs to be queued up to the start of the sound, and your fader needs to be closed. At the moment, my channel fader is open because it's at the very top position where our sound will be at full volume. Therefore, the closed position for a channel fader is at the very bottom, which turns our sound completely off. In order to perform cutting correctly, our channel fader needs to do the job of an on-off switch to transform our sound from complete silence to full volume instantly, and vice versa. So your mixer hand needs to perform quick, sharp strokes of the fader. One way to do this is to gently pinch the fader knob between your pointer finger and thumb, then pivot your whole hand on your wrist joint so that your finger pulls the fader closed and your thumb pushes the fader open. Another good technique is to make a C shape with one or two fingers and your thumb, and again pivot on your wrist so that your fingers close the fader and your thumb opens it again. So that's the role of our mixer hand. Whilst that's happening, our record hand will be performing drops, which I'm hoping you'll now be familiar with from previous tutorials. So based on our theory of switching a sound on and switching a sound off, the sound that we're going to be switching on is the first part of the drop, which is the part where we release the record, it plays forward. The part that we want to switch off is the second part of the drop, which is the sound made when we pull the record back. So to achieve this, we need to open the fader at the same time as we release the record, but then we need to close the fader before we pull the record back to the start. When you're doing this scratch, it's a good idea to keep your eyes on the marker and not on the fader, because your drops are the backbone to cutting correctly. So this is cutting with the channel fader. If you're a right-handed scratcher like me, the closed position for your crossfader is all the way to the left. The open position for your crossfader is at whatever point your sound reaches full volume when putting the crossfader towards the right. The shorter the distance between the open and closed position, the less effort is required and the easier it is to perform cutting. As I explained in the first tutorial, a scratch mixer with a sharp, loose crossfader is ideal, but regardless of how sharp your crossfader is, you won't need to pull it all the way over to the right. So it's a bit less strenuous than cutting with the channel fader. I'm going to use the same hand technique as before by making a C shape with my fingers and thumb around the crossfader knob, the same way I did with the channel fader knob. Only this time, instead of pulling the fader closed with my fingers and pushing the fader open with my thumb, I'm now going to do the opposite on the crossfader by pulling the crossfader open with my fingers and pushing the crossfader closed with my thumb. So this is cutting with the crossfader. Cutting is the first of our crossfader scratch techniques, and we can now combine this with our previous faderless scratch techniques to create more varieties of scratch patterns. Here's some examples. Try coming up with some patterns of your own, and when you're ready, see if you can apply them to a beat. Alright people, that's the end of the tutorial. I hope that you've learned something, and I also hope that you're making progress. I want to say a big shout out to everyone who's been getting in touch and subscribing to my videos. Your support definitely motivates me to make more of these tutorials, so thank you to all of you. Until the next time, keep practicing and be ready to learn some more when I return. Peace.